sharing options. Maybe I can share it in a window instead of the whole screen. No. Okay. Oh, multiple participants can share it simultaneously. Maybe that'll do it. Okay. All right. So let me see if I do this. But I have to share my screen. Okay, we're going to share screen. Share screen. Where did it go? I can't even see it now. Share screen. Oh, oh, there it is. Share screen. Can you guys see my screen? I mean, can you see the iPad screen now? It's gone, right?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Oh, maybe I need to do this. Hang on. Screen mirroring. I've got to select that. And these things have got to be remembered in some kind of temporary memory, right? Not in our heads, but on the devices. All right, share screen. Oh, there you go. Now it comes up. Okay, the AirPlay. Okay, zoom on that. There. Okay, that's much better. Okay, now I've got my Zoom window. I just have to remember everything we did today so that, next class we can do the same thing without having to waste so much time. Okay. Where's my... What's going on? What? Gee, okay, I gotta mute me. Mute. I'm sharing my screen, but where is my screen? I can't see my screen here. Oh, I can see my screen on the other window. Okay, so it turns out, but I gotta see my chat. Where's my chat? Where's my Zoom session here? I can't see my Zoom session in the other, oh, here it is. Maybe it's another desktop, no.
I think if you hover above your laptop, like in the top of your screen of your laptop, there should be an option where it says more. That chat window should be under that.
Oh, I see.
Like 3 dots.
There you go. I see it in the chat window. There you go. Excellent. Yeah. All right. Funny thing, I cannot see the screen that I'm sharing on the second computer. Not that it matters because I can see this computer. Yeah. Okay. I can't see I can't increase the size of this chat window. This is funny. I got to figure out these things. Well, next time I'll do this, offline when you guys are not on in a class. But I think the point I was trying to make is even little things, right? Even little things. So you can see those. You can see the iPad window. I hope. Now you can't see the iPad window. Oh, geez. Yeah, okay. So, you should switch on my camera for a sec here. Okay. Yeah, can you see so this is a screen door, okay? This is a screen door. Can you see the screen door, you guys? Right?
Yes.
Yes. So there is this thing here, right, to open it and close it. But, if you think about it, they placed that right in the middle, vertically right in the middle of the screen door, and it only takes a little bit of thought for someone who knows physics, right, to say that that's not the right place to put it, because even the smallest amount of friction on the bottom, the rails, is now going to cause an imbalance in the moments of the forces, right? Because if the force below is greater than the force above the pivot, the thing is going to rotate, not move. So if someone had the foresight to design it properly, they would at least weight the bottom more, or they would move that ever so slightly below midpoint, so that when I push it, I'm not causing a turning moment, or I cause a pushing force greater than that moment, so it actually slides back. I don't have to use as much silicone spray to keep the thing smooth. Right, so I think the way to design products is basically design a first iteration and then use it for a long time, so you discover all its pain points. It's from programs and software, right? Anything, it's the same. Discover all the pain points, and then in your mind you'll know which one is the most painful pain point. Yes, because, and obviously you're going to design a product for yourself. And I mentioned, so one time in a CS2A lecture, I had a student who was a barista at a Starbucks, right? Eric, I think his name was Eric. And he said he's made so many different coffees in his life, so many different kinds of coffees. And apparently the most popular one is the standard variation, not any of these fancy lattes, but this is a standard run-of-the-mill coffee is what people tend to like a lot. And where was I going with that? But anyway, I think the point was that, okay. And so that's the coffee he likes, right? He makes a lot of coffees for all these different people, and he can make any damn coffee in the world. But the coffee that he personally prefers is a standard coffee. And then I think he said something very insightful in class, right? If you're going to make a product, make it for yourself, right? The way that you would like it. The assumption is that you're like everybody else, right? If you think that, I have a very special and unique taste that, nobody else in this world has it, your product is also going to be very unique and special, and only you will use it, right? So, and if that's what we want, that's okay. But, most people want everybody to use what they create and everybody to enjoy what you create. So it's better to just think of you as everybody else, and that way, make it easy for you, and it'll be easy for everybody else. Okay, all right. So what we want to do today, today's plan, I think, and I think I promised this last class, but I don't know how relevant that promise is anymore, because what I wanted to, let me get rid of this for now. I'm not typing, right? Yeah, this is getting this on and off is more painful than not wearing it at all, I guess. Especially when, your hands get slightly moist. It's harder to pull it off. All right, so so I said, let's work through some conversion problems. I'm happy to do conversion problems. We want to talk about not just, here's the thing we want to cover, right? So we want to cover converting, which I hope you guys are okay with. Well, actually, you know what? While I'm talking, if you have some time, I'm going to type a number. I went to Google and I copied and pasted this into my buffer. Hopefully, I didn't hit Command C. Somewhere in between. So hopefully it's still there in my clipboard. So I'm going to hit Command V and let's see if it comes up. Okay. Did it come up? Oh, there it is. It did come up. Okay. All right. You guys see that number in the chat window? I can't hear anyone.
No.
From me? Oh, I haven't hit enter. Okay. There you go. Oh, okay, I need to hit enter here. Sorry. Okay, there you go. You see that number?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, no, that's not it. That's my Zoom number. Oh, I copied the Zoom number into my clipboard. Okay, just give me a sec, okay? I'm gonna get that number for you again. Okay, the number is, in fact, I need to paste it from this window here. So let me see here. Chat, why are you using Zoom? Where's my Zoom? There's my Zoom. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. So I know why I wasn't able to control Zoom from this computer. It's because my Zoom was on a different desktop, and but it showed me the strip, the video strip on this other desktop. So I thought Zoom was active there. I didn't look at the top menu bar. Okay, so let me see chat. Okay, there you go. I'm gonna paste it right here. Okay, this number. Okay, this number. Go ahead and, well, not right now. Maybe take a few minutes while I'm playing around with these things. Okay, take a few minutes to convert that number into hexadecimal. Okay, convert that number into hexadecimal. Maybe it takes you about 5 minutes. Right? And you can feel free to share the result here and and see how it goes. Okay, let's see. How can I? There. Are you guys doing it?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay. All right. Can you listen to stuff and work on it at the same time, or do you want time to work on it and then we talk, after 5 minutes?
No, you can do. We can do both at the same time. You're talking about this long number you just gave us, right? That's in the
yeah 3735.
Yeah, 92879.
But if you're too tired, or if you know how to do it, you don't have to force yourself to do it. You just go to Google and type convert that into hexadecimal or something like that. Okay? So you can do that, and right. So it's an interesting number. Because when they initially, during the very, very early stages of computing, the days of computing. Yeah, okay. So they wanted a hexadecimal pattern or binary pattern to fill, they had computers with, kilobytes of memory, back in the day, kilobytes of memory was, only rich kings would have that. Okay. So, and they wanted, and they had programs that occupied like 300 and 400, or, 300 bytes of memory and things like that. Okay. Big programs. And they wanted a good way to tell where the program lived in memory and where they had free memory that they could allocate for that variables, right? So they said, I want to look at, this time when you could actually look at the bytes individually on the screen, right? When it's 1 0. So, or, convert it to hexadecimal. Nobody ever looked at things 1 0. Apparently there's a story about John von Neumann, who's one of the, founding fathers of modern computer science. Yeah, there's actually many stories, okay? Many stories. And one of the stories, is apocryphal. I think they said that, von Neumann was very fond of writing all his computer programs in ones and zeros, okay? Not even in hexadecimal, in ones and zeros. So, I don't know, right? So, appearance. And it's an interesting thing. It's another related story, I think. Is related, maybe related to the speed of information processing in his own head. And that there's two cars on a highway, on a straight highway, 101 or something like that, right? And coming towards each other at 100 miles an hour, okay? And then there is a bee, right, that is sitting on the bonnet of one car. It flies off to the other car. And then as soon as it hits the other car, it flies back to this car, okay? And keeps doing that repeatedly, right? And the cars are 100 miles apart. Okay, and they're flying towards, and they're driving towards each other, and this bee is hopping between the cars, no stopping, right? This is just doing that. So the question is, how many miles does the bee travel? Okay, before the two cars meet. So and you can visualize that, and you visualize that and say, oh, the first time the bee flies that much, the second time it flies this much. Okay, so as the cars are getting closer and closer, right? And then so how do you calculate that? How do you calculate the total distance that the bee had traveled, right? And one way is to do that infinite sum. You do sigma, and then because that distance is mathematically predictable, right? So you can take that distance and you can calculate the infinite sum. And then you say, well, right? That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, interestingly enough, is, the bee is traveling at a constant speed. Let's say V, right? It's a V miles per second or something like that, V miles an hour. And then, the cars are 100 miles apart and they're traveling at 100 miles an hour. So when the two cars are going to meet, right? So you can easily calculate when the two cars are going to meet, because they're traveling at 100 miles an hour and they're 100 miles apart, right? So they're going to meet in an hour. Well, actually, they'll meet in half an hour, right? Because each one has to only cover 50 miles. So, now the velocity of the bee, and then multiply the velocity of the bee by a half an hour, so exactly how long the bee traveled. Right, so you can do that calculation in your head. You don't need to do that infinite sum. And so a student who heard about von Neumann's famous speed of mental information processing said, I'm going to go and try this out on the professor and see what he says. And then went and said, here's the question: how much does a bee travel? Can you help me out here? And then the professor, von Neumann, right? He said, yeah, this is the answer. And without, apparently without thinking, he said, this is the answer, and this is the right answer, right? And then the student was totally surprised, and because that was a new problem at that time, right? It was not like not like old now, like now. So he said, Professor, I'm like totally dumbfounded here, because everybody I describe this problem to, they always try and do this the hard way by calculating the sum of the infinite series, right? And most people don't even realize this is an easy way to do it, right? And then von Neumann said, wow, I didn't know there was an easy way. What is the easy way, right? So he actually did the infinite sum in his head like that. Okay, so it's kind of cool. So where were we going with that? Right, yeah, number conversions and so on. So if you know these things, just tuck it away in the back of your head. You don't have to do it because ultimately at the end of the day, once you know how to do it, it's just tedium. You have to go through it, and it's a real pain. Unless you have to do something interesting like dead beef, right? So otherwise, it's a bit of pain to do these things. But it's important to get that in your head. So the first thing we'll cover is conversions, numeric conversions, which you already have, a decent degree of familiarity with. What is the other thing? I want to, if you want, right? If you want, I can talk about two's complement notation and floating point. Okay, it's pretty straightforward, but I need to know, right? So that we don't. So here's the thing, right? If let's say. Well, let's say if a few people, right? If a few people amongst you want me to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. If there's only a few and you feel it's less than a few, right? And you feel you'd be happy to discuss the issue with your friends on Reddit or Slack, or get together and understand it yourself. That's fine. We'll save some time to talk about other rubbish, right? So because I got a lot of rubbish to talk about. So let me know. You got to give me feedback so if you want me to talk about that, I'm happy to talk about in two's complement and floating point. Otherwise, what we can do is dive into coding, and I'd like to. What time is it now? It's 8:32. So we got like a solid hour and a half now for coding. But maybe if you want, we can do an hour of coding and use the first half hour to clarify your questions about data representation, right? So believe it or not, I told you this last time, right? This data representation, get really, really solid on that, and the rest of computer science will just flow. Yeah, but not all of it, but most of it, a lot of it. Okay, oh, some of it anyway. Okay, it was the first parts anyway. Okay, so just flow. The rest of it will also flow because because you're not jumping, right? So you're going step by step, and you'll know where to go. And so you got to let me know. All right. So in hexadecimal, it starts. It's just you got a question. Momo asked a question, which I guess we round up to 15. Yeah. No rounding up. I think Forrest has the right point there, right? So, okay. All right. So what would you like to do? You got like 30 minutes of time to either to talk about data representation issues, or you can play around with these numbers and I can chime in. If you guys are stuck, you should do it in the chat window where everybody can see what's going on. And then if you're stuck, you can basically, unmute yourself and call out to me, right? So you say, hey, Anand, we're stuck here. What do we do, right? So I can take a look at it and, nudge you. I wouldn't have to do it really because there's so many people in this class that, I can see they know what's going on. They can jump in and help you before I get in, but I'm happy to, right? I'm always a standby here, so I can do that. Do you want to do that for about 10 or 20 minutes before we dive into some actual coding? So today for coding, what I want to do is try and do an online compiler, right? So for the first 4 or 5 classes, what did you not first 4 or 5? We're talking not classes, right? So I think I can use an online compiler, right? Even for up to lecture 10 maybe, right? Because I'm not going to write any code that I want to save. If I do want to write any code that I want to save, I'll use Xcode or some IDE, right? Otherwise, I'll just go into one of these online compilers, it's like a Replete or cpp.sh, and this is a whole lot of them, right? But Andy set up this Replete environment, and this video on YouTube that I highly recommend, right? Highly recommend that you go and watch, because it's really cool that you can just go to a library, right? You just go to a library, and like Andy says, you can even program on your phone, right? You can program on your phone, believe it or not. I would have done that a long time ago when I was a kid. We didn't have these computers, right? And if you had a small device and you had to program only on that, and punching each key took like 5 seconds, I would still have done it, because you have these ideas in your head and you want to try it, and what else am I going to do? When I was a kid, I was just sitting around, twiddling my thumbs, so I might as well do that. And people go to great lengths to code if you really want to, right? Because, you know, you want to try things out. And this is, programming is one of the cheapest possible ways. You think, right? You keep that in mind. It is one of the cheapest possible ways to test your ideas out. Now, I've told this in 100 times, 100,000 times in all my previous classes, right? So if you're interested in, you know, everybody's interested in science, right? Everybody's interested in science. You take a brand new child, child who's just, you know, not just being born, right? As soon as they start thinking, right? That's when they have this discriminative thinking ability. You know, they're thinking, and they want to know why things happen, right? Not some half-ass explanation, right? Say, you know, it's this invisible power that makes it happen, so it happens, and they take it on face value just because some, you know, authoritative figure told them that. No, the child is curious; they want to know, and when you tell them, well, you know, the apple falls because there's this force, invisible force, right? But the child's going to try it out elsewhere. You know, oh, the apple falls. This is, you know, mango fall. Yeah, everything falls. Everything falls. So trying to look for patterns, trying to look for repeatability, which is really the key, the heart of science, is basically repeatable experiments, right? Because once you have repeatable experiments, you know that it's happening again and again. So there's got to be some reason behind it. So I'm going to go and try and find the reason, right? So that's what is, so you can be interested. Everybody's interested in science, and so and we get fulfillment about when we solve these mysteries, right? So when every time you see something in this world that you can't explain, and then you figure out the explanation, you figure out why it happens, you get a degree of satisfaction out of it. Yes, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be science. Even, you know, even when we're talking about humans, right? So even in social situations, sometimes we think, when we think we know what the other person thinks about you or feels or going to do, you feel a lot more secure. Right? Because, you know, humans are never good with uncertainty or, you know, unpredictability. Because if something can happen, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I'm, you know, shitting in my pants all the time because I don't know, right? So I need to know. So that certainty is what makes knowledge, you know, alluring. Because we want to know, and every time we get a little bit of certainty, we get a little bit of high. You know, we get high out of it because we know. Yeah, next time something like that happens, I know what the hell is going to happen, right? So that, and so. And so that is why people are drawn to science, right? So because it gives you that promise of repeatability. Now, amongst all of the sciences, right? The cheapest science to derive pleasure out of. Ultimately, you want to come to the cheapest possible science. The cheapest possible, you know, you have 100 different flavors of ice cream, and, you know, they all taste pretty much the same, but, you know, that flavor is like $500 a scoop because it's flavored with a very rare fruit that only, blooms, or, you know, you can only get in the middle of some Saharan desert. Every 15 years, okay? Because that flavor is $500. It's going to cost, you know, and you say, wow, that's really good, man. So what, you know, what's, does it taste any different, right? And then they say, well, you know, it tastes pretty much the same as everything else, right? But it costs $500 because it's got a name. It's got, you know, Gucci or Giorgio Armani flavor, okay? But it's exactly the same, but it's $500, okay? Whereas this other one is strawberry. You know, I picked it up from my garden, and that's like $5. So you go for the $5. So like that, you know, you have all these sciences, all these fields that give you a shot at knowing a little bit of nature, right? Just knowing a little bit of nature. And every time you take off a little bit of the nature and look at the true nature, right, inside, you get this kick out of it. So what the cheapest part, maybe it didn't used to be the case before, right? When I was growing up, this wasn't the case. Computers were expensive, and you had to go to a special computer center to code. You know, I remember, you know, back when I was in college, our computer center back in India was this building, and then there's a computer room which was air conditioned because the computers could not work in room temperature. Now we have laptops, you have phones that you carry out in the hot sun. You leave your iPad in the sun, and then it'll tell you, hey, you know, try to switch it on. I'll say, hey, no, I can't work right now. I'm too hot. You know, just let me cool down and I'll work. You know, how many of you had that happen on your iPad? Right? So you can do all these things, but back in the day, you got to, you know, be in an air-conditioned room. And so most of us who weren't even interested in computer science would just go to the computer room just because it was so hot outside, okay? And we'll sit there and do these things. But those were the days, right? So computing was really hard and expensive, and, you know, but now it is, in fact, gone from up there to become the cheapest possible source of pleasure. Right? It's the cheapest. I'm not talking about science or knowledge. It's, pleasure as a source of knowledge. So it's the cheapest part. Why? Because if you were interested in building planes, right? You need to eventually join Boeing or Lockheed or rockets, or SpaceX, and you got all these billion-dollar equipments around you, right? So it's very expensive. In certain astronomy, you want to know how black holes and you got to eventually end up at some place that has a big ass telescope. Go to NASA or somewhere, so you get to study the data from these incredible sources, right? And you can operate. You can get the data even now because NASA and all these places they publish. They publish the data live online, right? They live publish these data, so you can do whatever you want from anywhere you want, right? Because you have everything you want. So but with computing, you don't need to join Boeing or Lockheed. You don't need to go. You can do everything you want from the comfort of your home. On a really, really cheap computer. Or if you don't have a computer, just go to your library, okay? Go to your library, go to a million places around you. A friend even, they don't bother, they're not using a computer, they're not watching Netflix or YouTube, they'll give it to you. They'll say, go ahead and code, man, I'm happy, right? As long as you're not gonna have, in a guest account, right? So it's so cheap now, right? So if you think about it, right? If you're really, really interested in computer science and that's what you wanna do all day, not just program, right? Use the computer to create your artistic masterpieces, right? So you don't need to go out and your food and everything taken care of, other than your rent, your entire monthly expenses. I know, less than less than $1,000, right? So for $800, you get your groceries, you sit in your home, you got a computer, you got electricity, you can just keep coding, and so it's so cheap. You don't have to buy a big ass telescope, right? Or chemicals, even chemistry, you got to buy chemicals. You can't do everything online. So in chemistry, right? The simulation has its limit today, maybe not in the future, but still today, chemistry hasn't reached that stage of computer science. No other science has reached that stage of computer science where the promise, the tantalizing promise of incredible knowledge is now brought within reach, right? So close that you can actually access it, right? No other science, right, has done that. So that's why, I think for those of you who are brilliant and inquisitive and curious, computer science is a good way, to give rein to your curiosity, to feed your mind. Your mind is always hungry, right? So you got to feed it, just like you feed your stomach. You got to feed your mind too. And computer science is the cheapest way. And I think that's the reason why, especially now, right? Especially now we're in COVID, lockdown, you're stuck in your home and you can't even socialize as much as you want, occasional friends drop in and that's all you get, right? And this is the best way. This looks like, everything has just come together perfectly for you to experiment with computer science. So fall 2020 CS2A is the way to go. All right. So any programming, right? Okay. So where were we going with this? So we want to do data conversion. So let me look at the chat window. If I to see if you have any questions, I would say as long as you, this is Andrew, underlying principles to, perform those functions. Yeah. So that's perfectly. I totally agree, right? So once you have a tool like a carpenter, knows to use a lathe or a drill, they can save a lot of time by using that tool. And in the computer lets you use the tool, except that you don't have to fork out $500 on Amazon for a good lathe, right? So I was trying to buy a lathe, and it was but then I eventually I gave up not because it's too much maintenance, I guess. So, but instead, for the same $500, you can go and get a computer and get a simulated lathe, right? You can do that, or you can write a program that lets young carpenters in training practice carpentry by fitting virtual blocks of wood on a virtual lathe. Right? I don't think it'll ever work because you need to use your fingers, to get a sense of where it's centered and things like that. But you can see where it's all going. Okay. All right. So do you guys want like 20 or 10 in 10 or 20 minutes to what time is it now? 8:45. We can regroup at 8:55 or 9 if you want. Do you guys want to, just fool around in the chat window and don't go to Slack now, okay? Because let's all keep it right here. You want to go over floating points? Okay, Momo wants to go over floating point. Who else wants to go over floating point? Because that'll take me like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to, well, actually 2 minutes. So to describe what floating point is and how you do it. There's only one person. Momo, are you the only person who wants to know about floating point? Is a whole bunch of people? I can do that. Some clarity on floating point would be helpful. So do I. Okay. All right. So this is a few people. All right. But before we talk about floating point, we want to make sure that you are comfortable with storing negative numbers. Okay. So a negative number is a signed number. Okay. A number that does not have a signature. So you know, when you write a number. Oh, let me use my iPad, okay? I got to get into the habit of using the iPad, or else I'm just going to keep on talking. So I need to make sure I pull this up, okay? Oh, and I need to, damn, I need to do this every single time? Okay, so I need to keep this iPad open then, okay? Okay, oops, screen mirroring. Okay, so let me get to the Note app. Okay, so hey, how come this lost its mute thing, muteness? Oh, it is. Oh, someone else. Okay, I thought it picked up on my audio from the screen. Okay, all right. So what were we? So is everybody okay with signed notations? A signature, right? So the number, if you write, 500, what happened? Oh, it changed my. Change my. I think I should be able to increase the thickness of the lines somehow. Oh, there you go. That's better. Because I like drawing with a thick line, except it's not working. There you go. Okay. Okay. Right. Suppose I have. Can you all see the screen, the iPad screen? Get rid of this.
Yes.
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 All right. So suppose I have a number, let's say 356, right? 356 or something like that. This is by default, we say it's a positive number, right? But really what we mean is plus 356, right? On the other hand, I could also say minus 356, right? So this is the magnitude of the number. So that's magnitude, how big it is. And what would you call this? This is a sign, right? The sign is basically short for signature, right? This is a signature of the number. That's a sign, and this is the magnitude. Is everybody okay? So on the same page so far? Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now we want to do the same thing with binary. We're going to do the same thing with binary. Let's say I want to take the number 12. Okay, 12. What is 12 in binary? Can someone tell me what 12 in binary is? You got to do it in your mind. Right? How do you do it in your mind? It's quite, small numbers. Right? I'm not talking about big numbers. Small numbers in your mind, it's quite easy to do. So just take off the biggest power of 2 you can get from it. So 8, right? So take off the 8, and then you're left with a 4, which is also a power of 2. So I got an 8 and a 4. So the 4 goes in the third position from the right. Yes, because it's 0. It's just 2 to 0. It's 1, 2, 4. Okay, so the 4 bit is 1. Okay, and the 8 bit is also 1. So you got 8 plus 4 plus 0 plus 0. So 1, 1, 0, 0. That is 12. Yeah? Is everybody okay with that so far? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now I want to make that. Oh, that's my cursor. Okay. All right. So I can. So if I say plus here, that's a positive 12. Or I could say minus, right? So, but the thing is, I can't code this I can't code this in binary, right? Because in binary, I only have 2 switches, right? I have 2 states for my switches. I have a +1, I got a on or off. I can't take the switch and leave it in the middle, right? And well, leaving it in the middle is effectively the same. Actually, I don't know if it's either on or off, because I think leaving it in the middle will leave it in the previous state. I haven't played around with the switches yet. Well, maybe if I imagine how it works, right? I think it stays in the old position until some threshold is reached when it snaps into the other, right? So I think in the middle, it's probably still in the old position. So you can't get the third state in a switch. So how the challenge now is, how do I encode the sign? How do I encode the sign in a system that only has 2 states, doesn't have 3 states, right? It doesn't have a dash. So how do I encode it? So one way is just to have an arrangement between you, the person who's going to write the number, and someone else who's going to read the number you wrote. right? You say, I'm going to send it to you as ones and zeros, but I'm going to, let's use a convention that the two of us will agree upon beforehand. Before I send you any numbers, let's agree upon a code, because what I'll do is I'll send you 8-bit numbers, right? 8-bit bytes, right? And each byte will have a number. However, I'm going to send the number to you in 2 parts. Each number is going to be in 2 parts. The first part is going to be the magnitude of the number, right? This part here. The first part is going to be the magnitude, and the second part is going to be the sign. Okay, so I sent it to you in 2 parts. Now, the sign, how many different signs are there? There's only 2 signs, right? Yeah, so I can effectively use a 1 to indicate negative and a 0 to indicate positive, right? Or vice versa, are we together?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I can say my bytes, I send you 8 bits in each packet. However, the number is not in 8 bits. The number is only contained in the 7 bits, right? The sign, the signature of the number is contained in the 8th bit. Okay. So I have that. Okay. And my number is here and my sign is here. So that could be a 1 or a 0, right? And my number is there. So and so if it's a 1, the rest of the number is the rest of the number, the byte indicates a negative number, right? Not a positive number. It's a negative number, and if it's a 0, it indicates a positive number. Why is it like that? Because most of the time we're dealing with positive numbers, and then we want the default representation, which is basically where you would have 0, right? On the even binary. In binary, if I have 12 in 8-bit binary, it's going to look like this, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. Yeah, so that's what it's going to look like, binary, right? So the binary number, if I was writing it in binary, like in decimal, 1, 2, right? Like that, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. That's my 12 in binary expressed using 8 digits, right? If I, 12 in decimal, 8 decimal digits. Can you write 12 in 8 decimal digits? Yes, I can, because my 12 in 8 decimal digits is going to be 12, prefixed with that many zeros. That's my 12 in decimal. So now I only have 7 bits for encoding the number. So previously with 8 bits, what is the biggest number I could have encoded? Every time you see me like that, frozen,
256.
waiting to see something in the chat window. Or,
You have 256 patterns.
256 patterns, yes. And Kim also has the right answer. The biggest number is 255. We got 256 patterns. But why is the biggest number 255? Because 0 is the first number, right? So 0 all the way to 255. That, in 1 byte, that many patterns. I can store the biggest number is 255. However, if I use only 7 bits and use 1 for sign magnitude, now all of a sudden the magnitude, right? The total number of patterns is still 256. I can store 256 patterns, but the magnitude of the number that I can store is now shrunk all the way down from 2 to the 8, which is 256, to 2 to the sun, which is 128. So I can only have 128 positive bit patterns. Well, I'm not going to call it positive. I'm going to call it 128 positive. Possible, right? 128 possible non-negative, right? There's a difference between non-negative and positive, right? You've got to be very careful in computer science and mathematics, right? When we talk to other mathematicians and computer scientists, when you say, hey, use a positive number. No. When you want to include 0 also, you can't say just use positive numbers, right? Because 0 is neither positive nor negative. 0 is even, right? You can't say 0 is neither odd nor even. No. 0 is even, but it's neither positive nor negative. So if you want to, say all, numbers including 0 greater than or equal to 0, you say all non-negative numbers. Okay, all non-negative numbers, negative numbers. So you got two parts. So right, all negative numbers will have a 1 for the sign bit, right? And then the magnitude, you can have 128 possible magnitudes, right? And for the non-negative numbers, you have 0 for the sign, and then 128. Now there's a disadvantage to this method. We talked about this in the module 0 thing, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, and you can clarify this in the forums, right? This is called the sign magnitude notation, because you're storing the sign and the magnitude separately. Now it's kind of wasteful. Think about it, right? It is wasteful because when it's good for all the numbers, except when it comes to 0, you're using 2 different patterns to store 0. right? We know that 0 is neither positive nor negative. So it in fact doesn't even make sense. Right? It doesn't even make sense. Well, actually, it makes sense, but it's not useful. Right? It's not useful to have two patterns. It's wasteful, right? It's wasteful to have two different bit patterns, both indicating 0. Right? And maybe you think, well, it's just one of 256 patterns. No, that's not the way to think about it, right? Because you're talking about one pattern, 256, but you're talking about billions and billions of bytes, quadrillions of bytes all over the world, right? They're all storing numbers. So you think about the wastage. But anyway, even if there's not that much wastage, I think the computing sense of mind, this is the mindset, the computing mindset is it doesn't matter if what I do does the job and with a little bit of wastage, right? But it does the job beautifully and elegantly, right? But it has a little bit of wastage. No, the computer scientist's mind will keep nagging him or her, right? So it will not rest in peace, because it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the waste is insignificant or it doesn't affect anyone, right? It's just that the fact that the waste is there, right? I think you'll get to that stage, right? You'll get to that stage at some point when you're programming, or right? The fact that this beautiful procedure that I've designed under the covers has some wastage happening, right? So that, and maybe nobody knows that, only you know it because you wrote the program, right? You know it because it's wasting stuff. Excuse me, right? And nobody else knows it, but it will keep niggling in the back of your head, and you will not rest until you have a really good reason, right? You have to have a good reason for letting that wastage lie there consciously under guard, or you say, well, I've discovered a great way to get rid of the wastage, right? So nobody else will notice a difference in that product. The product will be the same as before, but underneath the covers, it's improved, right? Because some wastage, so it's been made more efficient. So, and that's the way everything is, right? So today you go on, to go to Google or Facebook or Netflix, and you have the same experience most of the time until they actually release some really cool feature that they want you to try. And you say, oh, I'm just going to go to Netflix or go to Facebook or Google, have exactly the same experience every day. But it's very, very unlikely that you're using the same software in the morning as the evening, right? Because all these companies, right? Microsoft, so every day they have release cycles, right? Every day they have release cycles for many of their products. And without your knowledge, some of these products have been replaced behind the scenes, right? Some of the code has been changed. You never see it, right? And luckily enough, right? You never happen to hit that dreadful bug that was part of the old software, right? It was in the old software. You never hit it, but Microsoft found it and fixed it and released a patch, and and it all works, right? So from a product design perspective, that's how you think, right? So you want to say, it doesn't matter if people can't see it, but I can see it, and that really bugs the hell out of me, right? So, and when you get to that stage, you're not thinking about code anymore, right? You're thinking about the product. I mean, you need to be a good programmer to think about a good product, right? Because, you need to know what you can do. Right? Only a programmer knows really what they can do with the stuff, right? Because, you get a marketing guy or some guy who's done an MBA or, not even majored in computer science, they've done art or, not that, I'm not speaking disparagingly of those people, but, they're good in what they do. But when they come over to manage computer scientists, right? You get a person fresh out of MBA school, right? And they say, well, I'm going to give you these 5 brilliant computer scientists to manage and create this fantastic product. That guy is a hopeless product manager, right? Or hopeless would be, right? Because they don't know what is possible to do. And not just, even at a high level, a really good product manager knows what's possible at the deep level. They know because they've done it before. And they know, right? I know what's possible, but it's just not my cup of tea, right? Because I'm not a detail-oriented person who can do all these things, but I know that someone who can do these things can do a fantastic job. Right? So the job of a product manager really becomes not just thinking up a good product, but also identifying people who have the skills to fill in the tiny gaps, right? Because the big gaps, right? Well, I need someone who knows Python. Yeah, there's a million people who knows Python, right? So I need someone who knows how to use OpenGL, right? So, that's not, and then, high level, you're not, so in the beginning when you start out, product management, so you learn these big, so you fill in the big gaps, right? But as you get more and more experience in your subconscious, you're thinking about these tiny holes, tiny gaps and nooks and crannies in your product that you need to fill. And, in order to know who or what would fill those products, you need to know, how you would do it yourself. So you need to know how to do it yourself. And you need to know that that's what I would do if I had the physical ability to do it, or the skill or the training to do it, but I can't do it, but I know it can be done. I'm going to go and get, Jasmine or, Steven or someone, right? They know how to do it, and they have the dexterity and the skill to do it. And together we can, build this kick-ass product that's going to go and conquer the world, right? So that's the way you think about the product, right? So why the hell did we start talking about this thing here? Yeah.
You were talking about the waste
Oh,
of
yeah.
double zero.
Wastage. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think Andy actually mentioned that in the chat window, right? Why is it, which is the waste of 1-bit pattern, since oh yeah, you're actually answering it. Yeah, okay, yeah, there you go. So we want another way to store negative numbers, signed. They're called signed integers, right? So if you don't have a sign, it's called an unsigned integer. An unsigned integer in computing means that it is always positive, right? There is no sign. This byte here this number does not have a sign, which means just use default. Now, why would we use unsigned at all? Why don't we use signed all the time? That's what the people do in other languages, right? Like in Java, I don't know, I've forgotten, Python, many other languages, right? Many other languages, you don't have unsigned integers at all. You only have signed integers, right? So if you want an integer, you just get a signed integer. You can go negative, it can go positive, and it's right. It resolves a great deal of confusion on the part of beginning programmers anyway, who don't need to know the nitty-gritty details of data representation. Then you'll work with Java and Python and things like that, right? But why did C++ say, or C, right, say that I'm going to give programmers the option of 2 different kinds of integers, right? One of them is signed and the other one is unsigned. Why give you this option of 2? Because C++ is so close to the hardware, right? You can pretty much program an assembler and you do a 1-to-1 translation to most C++ code, right? Because eventually when you go on to learn more computer science, you write a compiler, right? You can write a compiler. It's very easy to write a compiler. It's hard to take the compiler to the last level, right? But it's easy to get the basic grammar going, right? Basic grammar. The optimizations really take a great deal of effort and ingenuity, right? So, but you'll learn to write compilers, take the high-level language, translate that into some intermediate code, which is very much like assembler. And when you get assembler, you can do a 1-to-1 mapping, right? This code says in this byte here in a program, 1011011111, it actually means take the value that is stored in memory location 5 billion and move it to the CPU in the register A. Right? Take it from there, put it here. That's 1 byte. That's the instruction to the CPU, right? Another byte might say, take another value from here and put it in register B. Another instruction, 111102100111, right? Something like that. Let's say, take the values in register A and register B, add them together, right? Using hardware circuitry and put it in register C. And then take the value in register C and put it in location 6 billion, right? So the program can access it. So all of these things happen so C++ is so close to the hardware that it gives you the option to say, here is a way in which you can, if you want, not have any wastage at all, right? Even that 1 of 256 patterns will make use of it, right? So we'll have a byte, and we're going to call it an unsigned. Excuse me. Where's my piece of cloth? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah. So here is the efficient way of storing a number, and we do this because previously with signed, think about it, right? Previously with signed, in 1 byte, you can only represent numbers. The biggest number you can represent is 128, right? This is 128. 127, right? Because once you go to 128, the number becomes 1 and all zeros, and the 1 is in the signed bit, and then it becomes negative all of a sudden. Yeah, because if that bit, geez, okay. Yeah, I got it. Oh, you can still see the screen? No, I can't. I got to keep doing this every single time.
you get the overflow issue.
Yeah, it's called the overflow issue. Thank you. Right? Rub this all off. Okay. Oh, actually, I can just scroll up. Okay. Yeah. So
Professor,
yeah, 200.
just for clarity on your, not only the unsigned byte, it not only doesn't waste, but sometimes depending on what the programmers need, all they need are positive, positive numbers, correct?
Yes. Yes.
For instance, with like a counter, there's no real need to count negatively. So counting positively, you can use a positive unsigned, or not positive, but an unsigned integer.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew. Did everybody get that? Right? So Java, you don't have a way to do that. In most languages, you don't have the way. So suppose you say, I want to loop from 1 to 200. Okay, I want to create a loop of a. We'll talk about loops in just 2 lectures from now, right? The loop is, you got a bunch of statements, computer statements, and you're going to do them repeatedly, one after another, and you want to do it 200 times. You can't do that in Java with checking. How do you do it 200 times? So you say, I'm going to create a variable in memory called x or I. Okay, set the value 0. I'm going to do it once and then increment that to 1, right? One more time, increment one more, becomes 2, 3, 4, 5, and you keep checking the value. When it hits 200, you're done. You can break out of the loop, right? So, but in Java, you can't do that with using 1 byte for the, for the number there, right? You got to use 2 bytes because the biggest number you can store in Java in 1 byte is 127. Because everything is signed, right? But in C++, you can say, well, I don't want to waste that extra byte, and I want to go to 200, and so I'll use an unsigned number, like Andrew just described, because I know this counter is never going to be negative, right? So I go from 0 to 255. I can use the entire byte to store the magnitude because I don't care about the sign, which is positive by default. Right? So you can tell the compiler, we'll see, right? When we start coding, I'll show you, right? You tell the compiler, I want a byte, I want an integer in which I don't have a sign bit. Everything is positive, right? It's just that and you can do that. Now, if I did that, how can I store negative numbers? Right now, so you think about it, right? We just sacrificed this incredible invention that someone came up with that says, if you want to store negative numbers, you can store it in 2 parts. You can store the magnitude and the sign in 2 different parts. Now I say, no, I want unsigned numbers. How do I, well, actually, maybe they're not related, right? But suppose I stored numbers using a representation in which there was no wastage, right? No wastage at all. I should be able to, one of those conventions is 2's complement. And people might think, 2's complement is an invention, right? It's an invention and that is and you have to understand it. No, there's absolutely no magic to it at all. But there's magic, but there's no, complexity, right? To 2's complement, it's actually a very simple notation because all you need to do is just think about decimal. I just said this in the previous class. When you're unsure about what to do in binary, just think back to what you would do in decimal, and it's exactly the same, right? So, and what is 2's complement? You just want the ability to store negative numbers. Now, here is a brilliant stroke of insight and genius by computer scientists, right? Because previously, you think about it, you had 1 byte to store integers. And then what happens if the number gets big? Think about 1 byte and sign magnitude notation, right? So, and what happens if the number gets to 128, 27, and you add 1? It overflows, like Andrew said, right? It overflows to that side, right? So you get a 1 on the side, and that screws up the whole number. Now, that is a shortcoming, really. If you think about it, it's a handicap, isn't it? Because you've just screwed up your number by doing some pretty normal operation on it. But then the genius of computer scientists, right? Say, well, you know what? We're going to use that to our advantage. Rather than make that a handicap, we're going to take that handicap and turn that into an advantage. How do you do that, right? So you take advantage of the fact that your numbers are fixed in size, 8 bits, right? And and if ever I do an operation on the number that results in a carry, because that's how you get, move on to the higher powers, right? You add numbers and you get an extra number, you carry it over, carry, and you add the carry, right? So if you get a carry when you're adding the most significant digits, then that carry has to fall outside of the byte. Yeah. And normally that would result in incorrect calculation because you just lost something. But we're going to say, wow, all right, we're going to use that to our advantage and say, let's see, we want to try and do the same thing to, let's go all the way back to think about what is a negative number? A negative number, if you think about, and forget about computer science, right? What is a negative number? A negative number is just a number which when added to its positive counterpart gives what? Zero.
Zero.
Yes,
Zero.
okay. So if I have a number and I could somehow design another number and I add the two numbers together and I get zero, then I can say that one number is a negation of the other number. Does that make sense? And of course, the operation has got to be consistent with all pairs and things like that, has to satisfy other mathematical properties, which does, right? So, but if right, so now think about decimals, right? Decimals, right? How would you do that in decimal? All right, so in decimal, what would I do? Suppose I had social security numbers, right? And so let's, this is the analogy I used in a previous quarter, and it kind of worked really nicely, right? So let's try this analogy. Suppose I had this planet in which there were only 999 people in the entire planet, okay? So everybody gets a social security number. So, and the social security number is 4 digits, right? 4 digits. And so when it comes time to filling the taxes, they got a box. And they got to punch, 4 numbers in here. Now, the challenge becomes, of course, there are no negative, maybe there are negative people on that planet, just like on Earth, okay? So this is positive people who you want to associate with. There's also negative people you want to stay away from, right? So there's negative people, and they get negative social IDs, right? Negative social security numbers, okay? So you got to fit all numbers in here. And so let's say someone has a social SSN 342 or something like that, okay? 342. Now I want to somehow come up with a representation for negative 342, right? How do I do that? Well, I take advantage of the fact that in my IRS form, right, I only have 4 boxes to fill in the number. This is 4 digits, and I want to store 342. So what I want is some number for 342 and some other number for negative 342, so that when I add the two together, I get 0. Yes? Okay, so the challenge now becomes I just need to, okay, right? I just need to fill in these boxes. Now, what I do here is basically say, since I have only 4 boxes, I'm going to exploit this fact, okay? Let's take 342 and then try and make up another number. Let me call that ABCD, right? Right, and this is 0342. 0342 is our 4-digit number, ABCD. And if I add these two, I should get what? I should get 0, 0, 0, 0. And it's only 4 digits, right? Now, the genius here is that we realize it does not have to be exactly 0. It could actually be, 1 followed by 4 zeros. I don't care because I only have 4 boxes in my IRS form, right? So there's one which is a carry from adding these two guys together. What happened? Okay, 0, right? So the one that comes from the carry that comes from adding 0 and this number, okay? I really shouldn't be ABCD. It looks like hex characters, okay? So say XYZ, UVW, XYZ, or something like that, okay? So I add these two numbers, I get a carry, and that carry comes here. And of course, 0, 0, and so on. But these are not part of the Social Security form. This out here on this side, right? So this is not part of the Social Security form. So, but I get a carry by adding these two. So I want to get there. How do I get there? So when and I think about it, and I say, well, I can get a carry if the sum of these two guys will be 10,000, not 9999, which is the largest number you can store. But if I get 10,000, if I add these two numbers together, then this carry can just be thrown away because I can store it anyway. I only got 4 bits, right? I throw the carry away and I get all zeros. Then if that happens, then I can say that this number is the negation of this number. Now, are we together on the same page so far? Yes, okay, all right. So my challenge is now, how do I discover that number? How do I discover this ABCD? Now, it's actually very, very simple. Again, binary, no, think about decimal. So all I want to do is, before I get to, what is this, 10,000? Yeah, okay. Before I get to 10,000, I need to get to 9,999, yes? Okay, I need to get 9999, and I add 1 to it, and I get 10,000. Okay, so what I need is 0342, and then I need a number which I can add to this, which will give me 9999. Okay, what number can I add to 0342 that'll give me 9999? Yeah, okay, someone already typed it in. Okay, 9657. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, 9657. Okay, so if I add this, I get 9999. Now, once I've got to 9999, all I need to do is just add 1 more to it. Okay, plus 1, I get 10,000. Right, I get 10,000. Now, once I get 10,000, I know, well, I don't have space for 10,000. I only have 4 boxes, so I'm going to write the zeros and throw away the 1. Okay, so does this make sense? Now, if I can get this to work, then I know that this number is the negation of that number. So I can treat one of them as a positive and the other one as a negative of the same number. Yeah. Okay. Now, nobody's responding. I am assuming that it's a unanimous yes. Yes. Okay, yes. All right. Well, no, not think so. Okay, Flavio, you got it. You got to know. All right. So after this class, make sure. Yeah. Okay. It's you got it. Augie, not Flavio, right? So you can't say I think so. This has got to be really solid. Okay. Now, where are we going with that? Yeah. Okay. So in geometry, right? In geometry, you're drawing angles. And I think I don't know. Complementary and supplementary angles, right? Yeah, I think, right? So what is a complementary angle, right? So in a right angle, you have what I think they're called complementary angles, right? So you've got 30 degrees, and then the complement of the 30 degrees is 60, yes? So whatever you need to add to complete the rest of the picture is a complement, right? So you complement something, when you complement a person, you're making them become more full of themselves. Right. So when you complement a number, you're making it, you're giving it what it is missing to complete it. So that's the meaning of the word complement. Complement is, right. So, but the other complement is spelled with an I, right? But in computer science, you change the I and the E's and the Y's. So right. All right. So the complement of our mathematics, right? So the complement is what's left over. So this part here, this part here, where's this other number? Okay, this part. Okay, what is a good name for that number? Okay, 0342 is a number, and this part here is really what I would call the nines complement. Are we together so far? I'm going to call it a nines complement because it's got everything to complete that original number to a 9. Every digit will become a 9 when you add it. You complete the number to a 9, right? So it's called a nines complement. Are we together? Okay. Yes. Now we add 1 more to it and we get what is called a come on. Okay. What do you get when you add 1 to 9's complement?
10's complement?
10's complement. Thank you. All right. So we get 10's complement. So 10's complement is a way to represent negative numbers in decimal without using the dash. How cool is that? Okay. So you can actually find out 10's complements of your own names in decimal, right? So it's basically what you add to make it, all zeros with a carry that you'll discard. Okay, theoretically, the carry does not have to be. So in binary, you only have 1 2's complement alternative, right? In 10's complement, you have many because this carry does not have to be 1. This carry could be, well, actually, it will have to be 1. Yeah. Forget about that. Okay, so. So that's your, and we, now that understand 10's complement, you bring the same thing, right? Once you go abstracting things, that's what it is, right? I think in learning is you start off with these little things, and you learn little facts. You learn little facts here and there. What I think happens, take chemistry or physics, right? So physics, you say you're going to repeat an experiment, drop the pendulum, measure the period, and is it dependent on the length or the mass or the gravitational field and all these calculations. But the aim of the experiment, right, in physics, is not to memorize or know how a pendulum behaves, right? You just know how a pendulum behaves, but not only how a pendulum behaves. Pretty soon you're going to be doing different experiments, electricity, right? You're going to use a resistor, 10 ohm resistor on a 15 volt circuit. How much current is there, right? So you're going to do all these different myriad experiments. There's thousands and thousands of different experiments in life, right? You do these things, but the goal of these experiments every time you do any experiment, a social experiment or a scientific experiment, the goal is not to learn the outcome of that particular experiment. The goal is to get a data point so that you can put all of these together and you say, well, I did that experiment, that experiment, that experiment. They all have different results. So because this is an experiment in electricity, this is an experiment in gravitation, that one is an experiment in chemicals. This is all biology, right? So different experiments, different results. But what are you going for? Are you trying to remember or master all the different facts? No. As a student, as a learner, we're not interested in individual facts at all. Why? But we still learn these individual facts. Why? We learn these individual facts because by taking all these individual facts and then using your own good sense, because if you don't have your good sense, you're basically screwed at that point, right? You got to use your good sense on that, and then you got to do factoring. You got to do, it's like mathematics, but everybody's doing factoring, but only people who call themselves mathematicians do mathematical factoring. Right? It's all factoring. What is factoring? Factoring is basically looking at stuff and saying what is common. What's common between all these things? I'm going to pull out all the common stuff, or what's not common is discard it, because I'm only interested in knowing what is the one thing that is common between all the experiments I'm doing. So you want to factor it out, and that's the essence, right? This is a sense, a scientific sense, right? So and then once that sense is ingrained in you, then nobody can stop you, because it doesn't matter what science or what you do from that point onwards. You look at anything, and then you look at it with that sense. And you say, well, I'm going to run an experiment, but I'm not looking for the specific outcome because, I know this is what has to happen because of my good sense. Well, let me see if that happens, right? If it doesn't happen, you can sharpen your good sense. And so that's how it works. So you learn, with two's complement, and so in decimal, right? You did this. You can do this in octal and binary, any hexadecimal, right? But you say, I'm going to do that in binary. Now I can say, this bit pattern in binary is really the negation of that other bit pattern. Does that make sense? That is what is called two's complement. In order to get to two's complement, all you need to do is, if you have a number 1, 0, and 1, 1, 0, okay, and let's say it's 6 bits, okay, 6 bit negative number, negative 6 bit two's complement number, okay. Now people think that two's complement is a representation, but you can also think of two's complement as the procedure, right? What about the complement of 5,000 in this example? No, the complement of 5,000 would be who asked this question? Augie. It's actually a very good question. Okay, it's 5,000 in this example. The tens complement of 5,000 is 5,000. Yeah. Okay. So Augie asked a very important question. Right. So someone remember where we're at, right? And after answering Augie's question, I'll come back to this. It's an important question, right? So we had 10,000 numbers. Okay, 10K numbers. 10K numbers, okay, and then we want to say 0 to 5K, right? 0 to 5K on one side, and then 1 to 4999 on the other side, okay? Augie, does that answer your question? Okay, so on this side, we cannot have 5,000. You cannot store 5,000 in two's complement using, that. So that's why in binary, okay, in one byte, in binary, in one byte, you go from negative 128 to 0, and then to 1, and then to 127, not 128. Yeah, it's not connected. I got to figure out a way which does this automatically.
Professor, I think a more accurate way of describing that would be you go from negative 128 to negative 1, and then you go from 0 to 127, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let me see if I can erase this arrow. Okay. So negative 128, and then to negative 1, and then to 0, and then to 1. Yeah. Okay. That's more symmetric. Thank you. Right. It wasn't symmetric before. Right. Okay. So negative 128 to negative 1. Adding 1 to it, and then add 1 more to it, gets to 0, and then well, if you look at it, it looks like it's asymmetric because, on negative side, you go all the way to 128, but the positive side, you only go to 127. No, it's not true, right? You look at it, it's divided exactly in half. You got 128, half the symbols are being used for negative, right? And the other half being used for non-negative. Now, does that make sense? This is two's complement. All right, so in order to get to two's complement, what do you need to do? The first thing to do is, how do you get to 10's complement, right? To do the 10's complement, you get to 9's complement and add 1, yes? So 2's complement, get to 1's complement first, okay? 1's complement is what you add to each digit to make it a 1. And super easy in binary, right? So you just have to flip the bit. If it's a 0, you need to add a 1. If it's a 1, you need to add a 0. Okay, you get it. So you just flip the bit. All, you know, and hardware is really easy, right? So you can do it really fast. You got a stream of bits. You just go, you know, like a zipper, right? And every bit is just flipped, right? You know, it's just trying, and it's one of the fastest operations. So complementing a byte is really fast. And so when you complement byte, you get 1's complement, and then you add 1 to it, and that becomes 2's complement. Okay, now you have a way to store both positive and negative numbers in a byte, or, you know, in any fixed sequence of you know, symbols. Does that make sense? And without using a dash, okay. Now the second challenge, after you get past that point, is, well, you know, we can do positive and negative numbers like that. What about fractional numbers, right? If I want to store 3.141, how do I do 3.141? Well, you know, we got a positive and a negative. Hey, can you guys hear the train?
No, cannot
Can you hear
hear
the train?
No.
Wow. Okay. So it looks like you're actually listening to synthesized speech from me, or at least, you know, my speech is being doctored by Zoom, or, you know, subtracted. So some signals are being subtracted. So the train is. I can hear the train. You know, I can just barely hear myself speaking, but you can hear me, right? So it's doing some clever signal processing to get rid of that noise. It's kind of cool, right? So you know, you love technology, right? So okay. So 3.141. How do I represent that in, so I want a way to represent that dot here. How do I do the dot? You know, as it is, we struggled, and it was a stroke of genius to come up with this way to store negative numbers, right? In 2's complement. Now, how do I store this dot? Now, again, we do exactly the same thing as we did in decimal, right? So think about it. Now, it's called scientific notation. But we're not going to use scientific notation. In scientific notation, 3.141 would be written like this: 3.141 times 10 to the 0, right? This is 3.141, right? Or if you had, you know, 47, right? You'd write 47 as 4.7 times, oops, geez, right? 4.7 times 10 to the 1, right? This is 47. So, but, you know, you don't have to write the times and the 10 if you have an understanding with the person who's going to receive your message, saying that, you know, I'm going to send you 2 parts to a number. Okay, the first part is going to be called the mantissa, right? Like a praying mantis, right? So mantissa, and of course, you know, Don Knuth at Stanford, he raised a point a long time ago, and I don't know when. He said, you shouldn't really call that a mantissa, right? He used to say, no, mantissa is used for logarithms, right? In logarithms, you have mantissas, and it'll just result in a huge deal of confusion for, you know, computer scientists or mathematicians who are trying to do computer science, because they don't know if it's a mantissa as a log, or, but, you know, for whatever reason, the terminology is stuck on. So we actually end up calling them mantissas, but except it's not written with this form, because, you know, as you know, we cannot do the point. Right? We want to come up with a notation in which we don't have the dot. Okay, so I want to write pi as. Okay, can you guys see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the 3.141 times 10 to the negative 3. That is my pi. Now, I don't have a point there, right? I have a point to make, but I don't have a point on my screen, right? So now I can tell, you know, I'm just transmitting the information to you. You can see the information. You see, well, you know, I got an integer to transmit, which I can do. I know how to transmit integers, right? And I have an exponent to transmit. Okay, it's -3. I know how to do negative numbers. You know, 2's complement is second nature to me, so I can do negative numbers. Okay, so I have these two. And then now I can say to my receiver, I say, oh, here, our contract is that I'm going to send you a byte. Okay, I'm going to send you a byte, right? And then chop the byte up. Every time I send you a byte, chop it up into 2 parts, except, you know, it's not sign and magnitude like before. Now my byte is going to be 3 bits here. Okay, 3 bits here, and then 8 bits here. Okay, so you got 3 plus 5, right? So you got 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that is going to be my mantissa. Right, mantissa meaning, you know, this part. Okay, not scientific notation. In a scientific notation, you got to have a point here, I think, right? So it's a mantissa, but it's very similar to scientific notation. You're just breaking it up into the part and the magnitude and the exponent, right? And here I'm going to code the exponent. You know, a smaller space for the exponent because obviously you're not going to have big ass exponents most of the time, right? So that is small. So you're going to have take this 3 and encode it using 2's complement in the exponent part, and take the 3141 and encode it using 2's complement again. Right, so it would be negative 3.31, and so here is a 2's complement of the mantissa. Here is a 2's complement of the exponent. Together, I transmit it to the other side, and they know that they have to unpack it in the way that I put it together, and they will have the value of pi in their hands at the end of the procedure. Is that clear so far?
Yes, had a quick question on clarity. Is there a convention on whether or not the mantissa is on the right or left side?
Well, actually, there is a convention. I didn't go into the convention because I don't know what the convention is. Well, you know, I think I know. You just look it up, right? You just look it up on Wikipedia. There's 1,000 different places, right? So you can come up with your own convention if you're just playing around with your friends.
As long as
like there's no base 27
and the person being communicated to understand the same convention, then
yes,
they're good.
Yes. Right. So as long as everybody's on the same page, as you know, I can speak in English in the understanding that you understand English, right? Because if I'm lecturing to someone in China, then and that village does not know English, I have to learn Chinese like that. You know, you have to have the same convention in order to be able to communicate information, right? And so you have that understanding in place, and you can read what I send you. Yeah, I don't know, right? You can unpack a byte. You know, we can find out later on if we have time. You can declare a variable, you can print it out in binary, and you can break it up, and you can do it. If you have time, you can do it. You can share it on the forums too, right? I declared a floating point number, and I looked at the binary representation of the number. You can do it in C++, right? And you say, oh, this binary representation corresponds to that floating point number. So let me try and decode it, right? Break it up into little parts and say, oh, that must be the exponent. That must be the mantissa. You can actually figure it out. If you had enough time on your hands, you can do it, but it works. Okay, so that's the cool thing about it. So that basically is a system in which you say, you know, 3141. I got the number 3141 from you, and I also got -3. Okay, that's the exponent, and that is the mantissa. Right now, I need to reconstruct the number that you sent me. How would I do it? So the procedure for doing that, you know how to do it, but you need to proceed. You need to formalize it in a way that a computer can also do it, right? So what you do is take the mantissa and write it down, 3141. Okay, and then take the point, because the point wasn't transmitted. The point, it's called a radix. Okay, put the point here, here on the right end. Always put it on the right end. Now you look at the exponent. Okay, now you look at the exponent. This is -3, right? Negative, you're going to move the point, right? If it's positive, it moves to the right. You remember the x-axis, right? X-axis, this way is positive and that way is negative, right? So if it's positive, it goes that way. No, it's negative. So negative means it needs to go to the left, okay? So how many spaces does it need to go to the left? 3 spaces. So my dot radix is not going to be here. It's going to jump here, and then it's going to jump here, and then it's finally going to jump here, and I get 3.141, which is the number that got transmitted originally. Okay, so does that make sense? That is how I recover the number that you transmitted without a point, but in 2 parts. Is everybody okay? Yeah, you can actually just hit the space bar. I think it unmutes you and you say yes. Okay, hit the space bar and say yes. That's faster than having to type yes into the chat window. Yeah. Okay, so now this notation here, right? This is a really cool notation where you have a point, and then the point is not at the final location, right? The point needs to float into place. The point needs to be put, and then it needs to float into place. Can you think of a good name for this, notation in which the point basically floats to the resting place? Floating point, yeah, that's fantastic, Daniel. Okay, so we'll call it floating point. That's what a floating point number is. A floating point number is a number where you write them, and put the point on the end and float it to the right place. Yeah, does that make sense? Now, if this is in decimal, right? And why do I describe it in decimal? You're not using decimal, and you're using decimal, but ultimately you need to understand it not in terms of decimal, but you need to factor it out, right? You can learn the same thing in decimal and octal and everything, but at the end of the day, you should not know you should not know just how to do it in decimal. I know how to do it in decimal. I know how to do it in decimal, or octal or base 27. No, that is not think about science, right? Factor all these things out. Factor all these. That is how you do it. That is how the thing. The first lecture we talked about minimal pairs in computer science, right? You set up an experiment. You want to set minimal pair. Only differ in one thing. Everything else is the same, right? So you do a million scientific experiments. Chemistry, physics, science, biology, right? So astronomy. So all these experiments, different. They're all different, but they're all after one thing. Right. So what we need to do to get at that one thing is basically factor out, right? Forget about different branches of science, although it's the same. Take about one, talk about one experiment, right? So let's say you want to find out some property of, conductivity of copper in electrolysis or something like that. So you do the experiment many, many different times in different settings at home, in college, right? In a friend's home, different concentrations of copper sulfate, add sulfuric acid, maybe different current density, all these things, repeat it. In different ways. Well, actually, you want to try and control it, right? You want to control it to make sure everything is as identical as possible. And the idea with controlling everything is that it is easier for you to factor things that are irrelevant, right? So likewise, when you learn the conversion in one base, okay, you know how to do it in one base. Learn another base. Learn how to do it in another base, right? And then the goal is not to learn how to do it in different bases, like I said, right? The goal is to think past the first presentations of the knowledge that you've got and think past what's behind it. So to understand the concept. And then, that's basically what happens. Now, if that's what happens, it should work in any base, not just in octal and decimal. Let me try it in binary, okay? You try it in binary, you'll see it works exactly the same way, right? Except in binary, it's not times 10 to the 5, it's actually times 2 to the 5, because you don't have 10 there, it's just 2. So in a floating point binary number, right? You have the mantissa and then the exponent. They're stored in binary, and then you multiply by 2 to the thing, right? And multiplying by 2, it has exactly the same effect in binary as it does in decimal, right? So if you think about it in decimal, when I multiply 3.141 times 10, what happens? The dot moves one step to the right. Yes, 31.41, right? If I divide it by 10, the dot moves one. So you can think of it as if I had this number, right? 341, right? And then lots of zeros here. Right, lots of zeros, okay? If I multiply that by 10, what I get is, the whole thing shifts this way by 1. I get 3410, right? So every time I multiply by 10, the whole number shifts to the left and a 0 is added here. Every time I divide by 10, the whole number shifts this way and a 0 is added there. And in fact, even more happens because here is not the end. There's a point here, okay? There's a point here. So if I divide this by 10, what I get is really 3, 4, and then it ends there because everything gets shifted that way. And the 1 just shift off, right? Because, we're not talking about bytes here, but the 1 basically shifts past the radix. It becomes 34.1, right? 3141, or 341 divided by 10 is 34.1. So every time you divide by 10, the number, shifts to the right by 1 position, right? Every time you multiply by 10, shifts to the left by 1 position, right? So this is right and left thing. This is, what time is it? Oh my gosh, it's 9:40 already. What, we got like 15 minutes left? Okay, we'll cover this, and then honestly, I can do another class whenever you guys want on the coding, or we can do it on Thursday. We got a lot of time. Believe me, last quarter, or maybe the quarter before, we covered all of the material by week 10, right? And then we had 2 whole weeks. Well, actually, just 1 week, right? Because week 12, I'm not supposed to teach. So we had a whole week where we had covered everything, and then we could just talk about anything we wanted. So we have a lot of time. And so do you want, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, do you mind if I ask? I just got that, I was looking at that email. I wasn't sure what that meant when you were saying October 1st, something about
scoreboards.
Yeah. So what were you referring to?
Yeah, the /Q site.
I think you mean after October 1st, we should just resubmit all our previous.
Yeah. So October 1st is when the fall quarter officially begins for questing.
Oh, so like even if we're on quest 4, unless we
all get wiped.
submit it, none of it's logged.
Yeah, what you can do for if you really one of a million people who really want to keep your memory of what you did in summer, you can take a screenshot of your scoreboard on September 30th. Okay, that way you'll know for sure. But you can't use that. It's not useful. You can't give it to me and say points. But it doesn't matter, right? Because if it passed it once, it'll pass it all the time, unless I change things on the testing side. Which, if I do, I'll let you guys know.
So just for clarity, even if students have previously submitted a quest and
gone,
gotten
all gone,
they should all resubmit previous quests to get the points for that 4R grades.
Yes, all gone. On September 1st, the scoreboard will be wiped clean. No, October 1st, wiped clean, all gone. So from now until the 1st of October, everything you do is, treat it as practice. Not just practice, right? If you got a working program, just keep it. You don't have to throw it away. And, you can come back next year and do the same course again. You can submit the same program. Well, actually, that's strictly speaking not true, because, people start selling their programs to the students all over the world. Right. So what I do is I make minor tweaks to the tests here and there, right? They sometimes have different tests. So, an old program may not pass the new system. Also I think I need to replace the first 4 quests of CS2A. It's been there for almost 3 quarters now. Yeah, 3 quarters. And I've also always wanted to replace those quests, because they test you in a different way. Not as far as you're concerned, but the back end is slightly different. Yeah, so maybe I'll get to it over the winter break. I don't know. We'll see. Okay.
Also,
all right. Sorry.
Also, I was wondering, do you have for your class or TA or something of that sort for assisting in kind of like leading along the way for the later on quests?
I'm sorry. What is it?
Sorry, do you have like a TA or something for the class or something?
Well, it's funny you should mention this, and I'm glad you mentioned it in class when we have all these classmates here. You guys, I don't know, if you ever go to have you ever gone to a bar, right, or a pub, slapped a $20 bill on the bar and say, hey, here's $20, right? And then the bartender says, what do you want, man? It's just $20, you can get a lot. And you say, no, I just I'm giving you $20, take it. Right? So do you do that? Well, maybe you do that if you're feeling really, really kind, or this is by a waitress you really want to impress. All right. So, but why would you consider throwing away money? Now, as far as tutors and TAs and all these things go, additional assistance, facilities, most people don't know, right? Or some people don't know and they're just ignoring it, like the $20 bill they're slapping on the countertop of the bar, right? Because the Foothill College, the government, your taxpayer money, right? Your mom and dad, and if you're working, you're paying tax, right? That money is given to Foothill College. Part of that money comes to Foothill College, and that pays my salary, that pays for your tutors, and always we have a tremendous number tremendous amount of resources at Foothill. Tutors almost 24/7, almost 20 up till midnight on Sundays. How much better can it get, right? There's tutors available online for one-on-one personal tutoring via Zoom, synchronous, just like this lecture. There's tutors in our STEM center, right, who are waiting to help you almost 24 hours a day, every day. And they cost, they cost as much as most, instructors do. And the college pays, right? The government, you pay. And then you say, well, I paid, but I'm not going to make use of it. Yeah, well, it's a tremendous waste, right? So, what you need to do is just find out. Just click on the Zoom link, or click on Foothill Tutoring, right? There's a link that says Foothill Tutoring. Click on that, and you should be able to see all the options available to you. Okay, Lane Johnson is a tutor who was particularly helpful, right? Not all tutors are clued up on questing or this particular. Some of the tutors might be really good at physics or chemistry, or some math or something else, right? So you need to make sure you get a tutor who is in your subject, right? Well, you can sign up. When you sign up, you say, I want a CS tutor. But even among the CS tutors, maybe some tutors are Python experts. So you make sure you get a tutor who's in C++ and C, right? Lane Johnson, if you're interested, is a tutor who was a C++ coder, and he was part of my entire sequence last quarter, right? And he was like so totally kick-ass helper, right? Everybody on Zoom totally loved him, not Zoom, right? On Reddit, totally loved him, right? People were gushing with praise and thanks at the end of the quarter, saying, "Hey, Lane, thank you for saving me. You're like a godsend," and so on and so forth, right? So look for him. Look for people like him who know what they're doing, and not only know what they're doing, but they know how to tell it to you in a way that will not spoil your experience, right? So as a teacher, that's the last thing I want to do. As a student, that's the last thing you want to do, right? You don't want the learning experience to be spoiled, because learning itself is such a fantastic thing. This is the most fun you can have with your clothes on or something like that. In someone's side, right? So you and it's so wonderful that you don't want it to be contaminated, right? This is an amazing smoothie, and someone just added a little bit of arsenic or some bad bitter tasting stuff. No, so find these people who know their stuff, and they know how to teach it to you without spoiling your experience. And I've personally heard from so many people who took Elaine's tutoring sessions free. Right, I got to say that, right? Every time I say this tutor is fantastic, and so and people say, oh, it must cost a lot, right? Like Wyzant, you go to Wyzant, you're going to Wyzant.com or something, or right? How much does a decent computer science tutor cost, right? See, and I don't know, something like $100 to $100 an hour. I don't know. Right? You don't have to pay that, and it's all free, and people don't make use of it, and it's a real pity that it all goes waste, right? And it's not like our tutors are basically saying, I don't have any students here. Oh, well, fantastic! I'm gonna, watch some Netflix. No, they actually want to help you, right? They're sitting there and they're actually glum and sad because nobody's there asking them for help, right? So if you ask them for help, you'll make their day too. Right? So you make them feel happy and make them feel, feel that, this feeling you're giving me, that that I'm making a difference in your life. Hopefully, I hope I'm making a difference in your life, a positive difference, not a negative difference, right? So that feeling, you should give it to other people too, right? So and then and I think that will be the start of a fantastic relationship. It's collaborating for the rest of your life, doing great things. Okay, all right. So we got like not 3 minutes. Okay, it's 9:47, but we're gonna go to 9:55. Okay, because you only need 5 minutes to take a pee and hit the other tab. Okay. So unfortunately, we didn't get to do coding, but we can do coding the first thing on Thursday, right? We can do coding first thing on Thursday. We're going to start with coding. Are you guys okay with that? And my plan is that we start with coding. We'll do, some basic expressions, try to code expressions, parentheses, PEMDAS rule, and so on and so forth. You're already, by the time you're probably going to do finish with the limerick request, right? And then soon after that, this is Thursday, this is week 2. This is week 2 already? Week 2, Thursday. Okay, soon after that, week 3, that's next Tuesday, the first class of next Tuesday, let's try and finish up both branching statements and looping, right? If and while. So let's get done with both of them on Tuesday. On Thursday, we can talk about arrays. Okay, so next Thursday, we can talk about arrays, and believe it or not, okay, after you're done with branching, looping, and arrays, you are already equipped to do some really crazy ass exciting things, right? And I'll show you some, right? So you play with arrays, you can do some useful things, okay? Not exciting, super duper exciting, but you can do some useful things, right? So we'll try and play with some useful things. I'll give you some useful tasks. So, I can have you working on something and talking to each other. Well, I can just listen to you while I'm doing my own stuff out there, right? So those kinds of cool things can happen. Okay, are we guys okay so far? Was this class useful? I don't know if we covered a lot of material, because I think we were just talking and or I was just talking and talking, right? And you guys should, just totally feel free, not shy at all, to rate me in, okay? So sometimes I go off on a tangent. Don't type in the chat window saying, hey, Anand, get your ass back in line. No, you got to say, unmute yourself and say, hey, Anand, what about this number we were talking about 20 minutes ago? All right, so we can do that. Oh, geez, this is the problem with having 2 screens, 2 computers.
Me and Augie had a good question regarding how binary should be read.
What the binary should be read as in general? What do you mean? Oh, binary representation of numbers? Because if you were just given a stream of bits, you have no idea what the hell it is, right? It could be numbers, it could be a picture, it could be a picture. It could just be some random junk data, right? Which is what you'll encounter most of the time when you're programming pointers and everything, right? You don't know what you cannot interpret. So when you're given binary data, the sender has to tell you, right? The sender always has to tell you, or you have to have an agreement in place that this packet of binary data is a number and it is stored in 2's complement notation, or this is a number that is a floating point number. People have to tell you that. If they don't tell you that, you don't know. It could be an ASCII character, right? So you don't know. So that's how you read binary. Okay. Now, if your question is, should you read binary from left to right or right to left? Yeah, exactly. Like Daniel said, right? You just have to agree on the protocol. If you don't have an agreement, you're screwed, right? You got to have an agreement. You need to know what's going on. Okay. So, but you know, there's a very interesting question. We're not going to talk about it now. You can think about it and look it up online, right? But in English, we read from left to right, right? So most languages lead to read from left to right, right? So most languages that we use in the Western world, right, is left to right. I think all Indo-European languages historically left to right, left to right, left to right, right? East Asian languages top to bottom. This is another convention, right? But in the Middle East, in the Arabic, the Semitic languages, I don't know, maybe it's all Semitic, it's just Arabic maybe, right? Urdu, I don't know about Urdu, right? So I shouldn't make that comment. So, but certainly in Arabic languages, they read from right to left, right? There's in fact a very interesting story. I'm so fond of telling it. I've told it 3 times already in previous classes, right? So it was when Tide, I don't know, it's apocryphal, right? Maybe it's maybe not even true, right? Tide detergent, right? They launched an ad campaign in New York when they first came out, and they said, you know, we don't want people in their cars driving on the highway to read these the roadside signs, so we just want pictures. So they look at the picture and immediately they know what's going on, right? So they came, some clever advertising executive came up with this idea saying, well, you know, we're going to have this two panels on the billboard. Okay, on the left panel we have this woman, right? In those days, women did the laundry. Okay, so we have this woman taking a dirty white shirt, and dipping it into a bucket with, you know, Tide suds in it, right? And in the right panel, she's pulling it out, and it's spotless and white and clean. Okay, no words, nothing. It's just Tide logo and these 2 panels. It's a brilliant ad, right? Because, you know, you're driving along and you see that, and it just embeds itself in your subconscious. You know, wow, Tide, I should go and get Tide. You know, I'm not going to go to work. I'm going to go to Safeway first. Okay, all right. So you're going to get Tide. So they said, wow, you know, when they launched the ad, the sales of Tide really picked up. You know, basically killed all the competition, right? Everybody wants to use Tide, right? Came on like a tidal wave, right? And they tried the same ad in the Middle East, okay? And then the day the first ad debuted, the sales of the detergent basically just tanked, right? Nobody bought Tide after that. And then they sent some researchers and they found, oh, you know, in the Middle East, they're reading it from right to left. Right, so you use Tide and get your clothes all dirty. So but you know, so we do it in that direction. However, English, you read from left to right, but your numbers, you read from, you know, right to left, right? Because you look at your number, you 1, and then as the number gets bigger and bigger, the number grows to the left, not to the right, right? Why is that? If you think about it historically, in the ancient days, if you go back all the way to India, and in the ancient India, the numerical inscriptions were all in what we would think is, you know, increasing powers of 10 on the right. That's how it was, right? But, you know, historically, how did we get this number system, the place value system? Right, because when the Arabs picked it up from India, and they stored it for a long time before the Greeks actually, right? So picked it up. So the Arabs inverted it, because for them the language went the other way, right? So they inverted it. So the Greeks picked it up from the Arabs, not the Indians. So that system of the inverted numeric. But now today we don't even think about it, right? So how many of you, you know, writing numbers think, that's really strange. I write English from here to here, but my numbers are going from that. So we don't even think about it, right? Because it becomes second nature. Because, you know, that is the power of ingrained thought. So many times in our lives, we get information, and some of this information has reached us so early in our lives that it's been ingrained, and we don't even pause to think about it. Right? We just follow it blindly. So the challenge for humanity, really, I think, in my mind, is to basically shed all the preconceptions and, you know, say, you know, forget about it. If someone told me that, no matter how authoritative, right? Maybe Anand told me this, right? So no, I'm not going to believe him, right? I'm not going to believe him. I'm just going to use my own good sense to find out what the hell is going on, right? So you shed these preconceptions, you end up not only finding new things, but you also get lots of pleasant surprises. Right? Wow, is this how it happens? Is this, you know, why is it? It's different from the way that I would have done it naturally, right? The default behavior is this, but everybody's been doing it this way for a long time, for centuries, I mean, thousands, eons, right? Why? Right? And as you think about it, that's the reason. Okay, so you kind of uncover, and these are interesting artifacts you can tie into your, you know, landscape of beautiful flowers in the world of computer science. Okay, all right. So I guess most of you are now gone. It's 9:55. You got 5 minutes. You'll take a break and then join your next class. Okay. Now, are you guys coming back on Thursday?
Yes,
Yeah. Oh, all
definitely.
right.
We
Thank
are.
you. All right. Did you feel that in today's class we covered some useful new material? Because I know this a lot of this is familiar. You know, many of you already know all of the stuff, but I just want to make sure that during the early classes, everybody is solid on these, right? Then we can build, you know, the Empire State Building. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Augie, Andrew. All right. So what you can do is, since we ran out of time, you can ask these questions in the forum and I'll try to answer it there. And oh, is Andrew answering someone else? Okay. All right. Good.
Professor, I had a quick question. If we had questions and wanted to go over kind of like the quiz, the data representation quiz, I understand some students haven't yet completed it.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Give it a week.
Okay.
Give it a week, and then next week I think the quiz will close for everyone. Then you can discuss it on Reddit.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Is that Daniel?
Momo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got to recognize your voice, Daniel. That's cool. All right.
Wait.
Great.
Before. I think that we might want to cover like data interchange formats as well, like XML and how schemas work. Because like, you know, how are commonly represented, or like even JSON, just because it's like, I think that we need to know how we are we interchange data normally. So like in JSON, you know,
Yeah.
how we define like the schemas.
I'm not going to cover that. I'm really sorry. Okay, because you know, it's once you understand data representation, everything else is just, you know, munging from one form to another. Right, and this tons and tons of different kinds of data and transformations from one to another. So,
or at least we because usually we just need to show like how we can tell what comes in and goes out, like the schema.
Yeah. Let's not worry about that, okay? Because I don't think that's relevant to what we're going to do in class.
Okay.
Later on, but if you're absolutely interested, I can, you know, talk to you in private messaging about this. Okay, so I'm happy to give you. Well, once you get to 2C and you start building a product, that utilizes C++ and JavaScript and Python and all these things, and together you start putting things together to create something, right? And then you get stuck saying, oh, you know, this representation, how do I translate stuff to this representation? Yeah, fine. I don't. You can shoot me an email, or you can even discuss it. Forms, but now I think it's overkill to talk about those things. Yeah, because we have a lot of other stuff to talk
about. Professor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Who is this?
I'm Ming Fai.
Ming. Yeah, okay, great.
Okay. For the Foothill Zoom problem, I do receive a bunch of notifications about you set a schedule, lots of recruiting meeting at the Foothill Zoom.
Yeah, they're all the same. In fact, I had a great deal of trouble locating.
I think you changed some of the setting and hide all the scheduled meeting for us, and which it may include the recording. So I think you can check the setting, so make sure that it shows to all the students.
Oh, there's a setting in the settings. When I create the meeting, I can say show it to all students.
Yes, I think there's a setting that can show to us, because I do receive a bunch of notifications about you set up all the recruiting meeting on Tuesday and Thursday.
Right now, the way I got to it is to click on that link on the top that says show all my meetings. And I show all the meetings. This one shows up, but I'll take a look. Okay. Maybe there is a setting in Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ming Fai. All right, yeah, Charlene, same time on Thursday, okay? I'm glad you asked the question, which means you're coming back. So that's fantastic. All right, I'll see you guys on Thursday. I got a bit of stuff to take care of now. And then later on, I'll come back and look at any questions you've got.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay.
Just one real fast question. I'm
just
wondering,
sure.
like, this is not related to the class. I was just wondering, like, for the full quarter, will the classes be like this lectures online, or they'll just like be like usual normal in class inside the building, inside the campus?
I'm sorry, I totally didn't get that.
I mean, like, will the classes be online on the fall? I mean, the winter semester. The winter quarter.
The quests are not formally affiliated with Foothill, okay? It's just something I did on the side. and it is open 24/7, 365 days a year to every single person in the world.
I think he's asking about the class, not the quest.
Yeah, I'm asking like
the classes
where the
Oh,
classes.
class. You said class. I thought you said
Yeah,
class.
the classes.
The class. The class, I think, once it's on YouTube, it's there. I think even if I wanted to, I can't get rid of it.
He's asking if the classes in the winter quarter will be online or if they will be returned to in-class settings.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, they'll be online. If I'm going to do Zoom, they'll be online. I actually don't know which one I'm doing synchronous. Is it 2B or 2C or 2A? I got to find out. Well, whatever I'm doing, it will be online just like this. But I think if I'm going to be doing 2A online, again, synchronously like this, synchronous 2A like this, I don't know if I should do the lectures again from the beginning, or basically, just take time off and watch a YouTube clip when you guys watch this quarter's video, right? So I say, hey, take a look at the last quarter's recordings, because I got this really interesting serial on Netflix I need to catch up on. Right? Yeah, actually, I'm just kidding, because it's a long time since I watched Netflix. All right. Thank you. Is that it?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.